sorry.
Okay.
Live on YouTube.
It's getting there.
Do I look good?
Great, Alan.
No, Gray is shaking his head.
All right, we are live.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to call to order the May 6, 2020 meeting of the Land Use and Building Management Committee of the Common Council to order. It is now 7:34. I will start with a roll call. You can just indicate you're present when I call your name. Mr. Burnett,
Present.
Mr. Hooverman,
Present.
Mr. Keegan,
Here.
Mr. Roberts,
Present.
Mr. Satinelli,
Present.
Ms. Smith.
Here.
Okay, we are all present, unanimous. Sorry, we're all here. We have a quorum, so we'll move to the agenda. The first item on the agenda is public participation. We have received an email from Diane Lauricella, which I will read. And okay. It says, please enter the following comments in the record. I would like to address this committee in the near future in order to have it consider employing several across-the-board policies about green building design and renewable energy generation and storage when considering any public building construction or renovation project. As such, I would love to speak to the chair in order to arrange for a discussion item on the agenda. All of my comments relate to the need to decrease the amount of money spent to construct and operate public buildings. Item B1, BOE, propane truck. Please review and send back for an estimate for an electric vehicle to compare prices and carbon footprint. C, school construction. Please review the links below to highlight two worthy programs, Net Zero Energy School Design and Better Indoor Air Quality Operation Design. I believe that none of the schools listed below and on this agenda have optimized the green building design and solar energy design opportunities that many other towns and cities in Connecticut have employed for almost the last 10 years. I ask that the following 4 school project votes be tabled unless and until the city begins to incorporate solar energy generation, both passively with building orientation considerations and actively with rooftop, carport, and/or ground-mounted design, and seeks a second opinion about whether our current consulting firms have optimized sustainable energy generation and green design opportunities. Item 2, Jefferson. Renovate as new rooftop and carport parking lot solar ? 5, Norwalk High School. Schematic drawings as new. She has, I guess, ditto marks for rooftop and carport parking at lot solar. I don't know. Item 6, Cranberry passive and active solar generation ? 7, Naramake kitchen and cafeteria renovation, incorporation of food recovery and recycling areas in kitchen and cafeteria itself ? Tonight you will be told that my concerns are being addressed later. However, I respectfully disagree because I've been told the same thing about previous school building projects where next to nothing has been done to implement solar renewable energy measures. D, Building Management. 1, Solar Guard contract. Before you sign off on this request, please ensure that the guard services found in City Hall and Health Department are nearly as good as what you find in Stamford City Hall, where people have to sign in and sign out right at the entrance. The current Norwalk system lets just about anyone in the main entrance without review, and therefore increasing the risk to the employees and visitors alike of future problems. And then she's provided links. Please scroll down the PowerPoint links, which I'm not going to read. And that's signed sincerely, Diane Lauricella. Okay, that'll be put into the record. Are there any, Larry, are there any other participants or anybody on the Zoom call?
The only attendees that I see are Diane Lauricella and William Hodel. If either of you would like to speak, please raise your hand electronically now.
Diane, I just read your comments.
Yeah, Bill Hodel is raising his hand. Go ahead, Bill. You are unmuted.
Bill, do you want to speak public comment or do you want to speak when we get to schools?
I'm sorry, I'm having technical difficulties. I want to speak when we get to schools.
Bill,
Okay.
I'm going to promote you to a panelist. How's that? Okay, he'll be rejoining in a moment as a panelist. Okay, there's no one else. It's just Jarrett from the Norwalk Hour and Diane.
Okay, and Diane, I am not hearing anything from you, so I assume you have nothing else to say that was in your, other than what was in your letter, which I read. Okay, so I will now close public participation and move to the approval of the minutes for the meeting held March 4th, 2020. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Any corrections, comments on the minutes as drafted? Seeing none, all in favor, I guess I should do the roll call again. Mr. Burnett,
Aye.
Mr. Holoman,
Aye.
Mr. Keegan.
Aye.
Mr. Roberts,
Aye.
Mr. Sachinelli,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
and I also approve, so it's approved unanimously. Thank you. First item on the agenda under new business is item 4A, early childhood. A1, review proposed lease amendment with early childhood providers at Nathaniel Ely and Ben Franklin Center and refer the following to the Common Council for action. A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a third amendment to the management agreement with Odyssey Learning, Inc. for the operation of early childhood programs at Nathaniel Ely Center to extend the terms of the agreement from July 1st, 2020 to June 30, 2022. All remaining agreement terms to remain unchanged. B, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a third amendment to the management agreement with Growing Seeds 2 Child Development Center, Inc. for the operation of early childhood programs at Benjamin Franklin Center to extend the terms of the agreement from July 1, 2020 to June 30, 2022. All remaining agreement terms to remain unchanged. Do I have a motion?
I'll move that motion. This is Greg Burnett speaking.
Thank you, Greg. Mary, do you want to introduce yourself for the record and then comment? You're on
Early
mute.
Childhood.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
You are on mute. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm the early childhood coordinator for the city. And these are two contracts that we're proposing be renewed for these two programs that provide childcare in the two city buildings, Ben Franklin and Nathaniel Ely. These two programs receive money through the city. The city receives a contract from the state of Connecticut Office of Early Childhood. And then they are subcontractors for the city to provide the programming. Between the two programs, it's 111 children. They are all low-income city children, toddlers and preschools between the two buildings. And I did provide some backup. They are all licensed by the Department of Public Health, Office of Early Childhood. They are both accredited. They have both been in business a number of years, and this is a renewal of that contract.
Alan, anything you want to add? You're muted, Alan.
I'm back. I'm here. Yeah, this let's see. Yeah, currently they're paying the utility costs at 2,050 cents per square foot per year. So we are not asking any changes to that, and then that amount covers our utility expenses. So I think this is for Mary, correct me if I'm wrong. This is the 4th year already, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And the reason why we do 2 years because the state grant is really the grant funding 2 years at a time, right? So
It's a 2-year grant, so we're just following the state grant cycle.
okay. I'm going to extend this conversation a little bit more. I talked to Mary today. The two management companies are having some difficulty due to the coronavirus. So they are discussing how they're going to run program coming up in summers or whether we start again. There's some question about it, but at the same time is that we want to approve this, and then there may be subsequent requests or changes that they may look to the city So I will bring it back to the committee if there's requested changes. Is that correct, Mary? You want to add to that or?
Yes, yeah. Both of these are small businesses, and as I'm sure you're all aware, small businesses are really struggling right now. And certainly early child care centers and programs are no exception. They're, in the best of times, they're operating on a shoestring. So I am hoping that we can come back to this committee with a proposal to perhaps allow them to waive their utility fee for perhaps the summer months, just to help them out a little bit, because they do not know. They are receiving state funding right now. They don't know if that will continue through the summer, and they will not be able to have their full enrollment of children, which means their funding probably will get cut in the summer, as well as parents pay on a sliding fee scale and dependent on income. And they have many parents that right now are out of work. So it's really a pretty dire situation for our childcare industry. So I'm hoping that there would be a little relief for their utility fees.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. A couple questions. I mean, how many kids currently participate? I mean, let me rephrase that. Absent the COVID situation, how many kids are in these programs?
Between those two buildings, 111.
Okay. And just so everybody else knows, oh, you want to say something else?
And I just want to say, while we have about 600 funded preschool slots in Norwalk, these are really the only funded toddler spots in Norwalk, which is pretty commendable because it's difficult to get funded toddler spots, but they are always full, and toddler care is very, very expensive for families. So it's really great that we can provide this with the help of, the city as well as the state.
Yeah, thank you. And just so the committee knows, I also spoke with Mary earlier on about the possible need for some sort of relief. As of now, we don't have any numbers, so that's why she's not asking. But I said,
Right.
if you all agree, that she can come back to us if and when they do need relief, and we can discuss it at that point. So any other comments, questions for Mary? All right, hearing none, I will take a vote on this item. Mr. Burnett,
Aye.
Mr. Hooverman,
Aye.
Mr. Keegan,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Aye.
Mr. Sacinelli,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
and I also agree. So that's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Mary.
Very good. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Okay, moving on to item B1, review proposal for vehicle purchase and refer the following to the Common Council for action. A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute sole source agreement with Gabrielli Truck Sales in Milford for I guess it's the purchase of a propane fuel box truck replacement for a total not to exceed $71,832. Count noted. B, authorize the MPS Facilities Department to issue additional charges for truck body lettering for a total not to exceed $1,700. Account noted. Do I have a motion? Anyone? Thank you, Barbara. Ms. Smith moves that. Who's going to talk about this? Anybody? Alan?
Bill is.
Oh, Bill. Bill, if you can introduce yourself for the record.
Odell, Director of Facilities, Board of Ed.
Okay.
So a couple of years ago, probably 2018, we were in dire need of replacing our current box truck that the Board of Ed uses on a daily basis in all of the schools for various equipment and book deliveries. And the superintendent had come to us and said, make sure whatever you replace it with is an alternative vehicle fuel-wise. So we went out, we researched, we looked at the electric. The electric is not available in the capacity and the power we need. So we worked towards the propane fuel tank. We found it, we put it out to bid. We only got one bid back. We sent it out again. We got that same bid back. It turns out that Gabrielli is the same company that the DPW uses for their trucks. And this is a fairly new idea. which we're bringing to the city with an alternative fuel vehicle. So here we are today, making a request for this truck. Our current box truck has been set aside. It's no longer safe to drive. So we're actually renting one. So we're in desperate need to get this truck on the road as soon as possible. And yes, it meets the need that the superintendent had requested.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments, members of the committee?
I
Mr.
do
Keegan,
have a question.
Mr. Keegan first.
Yeah, hi, my question is, I thought all expenditures from the Board of Ed came from the Board of Ed budget, and this is a public schools purchase, is that correct?
Well, this is the capital monies that have been allocated to the Board of Ed and approved already by the Common Council in 2018. So this is actually, can we say, old money?
Okay, thank you. That answers my.
Mr. Burnett?
Yes, Greg Burnett speaking. Bill, when you say that the electric cars or a hybrid car is not available, what does that mean? How long would the wait be for a hybrid type car? I know in DPW, we just approved an entire fleet of hybrid cars, and they really promoted how efficient the cars will be and the savings to the city. So I'm curious as to why the propane option, and we can't wait for a hybrid truck to be available.
Well, hybrid cars have much less power than a truck. Mind you, this is a Ford 650. It's a very large truck with a lift gate in the back. They simply don't have that in electric, based on the research we've done. The hybrid of gasoline electric vehicles, that is a car or sedan, yes, the technology is there, but it's not there yet for a powerful truck.
If I can just follow up. So when you say that it's electric car is not available, you're saying there's not a car on the market, or it's a inventory issue?
No, just to be clear, the electric is available in a sedan. The electric is not available in a very powerful truck. DPW, as you mentioned, are looking at vehicles, sedans, not the trucks, so far as I know.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So we have no other option. That's basically, when you said not available, we have no other option. Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments from members of the committee? All right, hearing none, I'll take a roll call. Mr. Burnett,
Aye.
Mr. Keegan,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts, Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Hooverman,
Aye.
Mr. Sacchinelli,
Aye.
and I also vote yes, so it is unanimous. Moving on to school construction projects. Alan, general update, or Jim? I don't know what you're gonna do here.
Okay, I just unmute myself. Yeah, I think we're gonna touch on a number of design items afterward, but I think Jim, can you just give an update on Ponus first? Ponus School first?
Sure. This is Jim Giuliano from Construction Solutions Group, Program Manager for the School Construction Program in Norwalk. Right now, Ponus Ridge is moving along. As many of you probably heard, school is not going to be returning this year. So the construction manager is taking advantage of having the building empty of students and moving forward with work that was going to be work that wasn't scheduled to start until this summer. As far as COVID-19 affecting it, that project, it really hasn't. That construction manager, Newfield, has taken some proactive steps in providing a medical personnel at the site, and they're taking temperatures of the workers before they enter the site. The site is cleaned daily. So as far as PONUS goes, we are on schedule and perhaps going to be a little bit ahead of schedule. They're going to redo their schedule by this Friday and forward that on to me so we could see when they're going to be finishing up. Jefferson, you're going to be hearing about in a second or two, so I'll pass on that for now. And we're moving forward with the grant applications for 3 projects that will be submitted this June 30th. Narrowneck Kitchen.
Jim, could you just, let me interrupt for a second, this is Alan. Before we go up to PONUS, there's a couple minor things too. One is that there are additional expenses due to COVID-19. And we have been tracking those numbers, and we're going to be submitting to the city for potential financial reimbursement from wherever we make money from. So we are tracking the additional expenses because of cleaning and additional cleaning, and also the medical profession that's on site for. I think she's there for maybe a few hours in the morning, just check everywhere before they come in. The other thing too is we are working with the administration we have to start packing PONUS school again, because we have to move them back at the end of summer. The middle school kids will move back into the old building, the existing building. And at the same time, we're working with Jefferson School to have them packed so that we can move them into the lower wing by end of August. So those are 2 things that relate to PONUS still ongoing.
Mr. Burnett, did you have a question for this?
Yes, Greg Burnett speaking. Jim, you indicated that PONUS is on schedule, but is it on budget?
Yes, it is. Actually, I'm hoping that we may come in slightly under budget, but with this additional cost, we're going to have to see how that plays out. Additional costs in relation to the COVID-19, I should say.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
You want to keep going, Jim?
Sure. So I'll pick up where I left off. We're in the process of putting together the grant applications for the Narrowneck Kitchen addition, the Cranberry Elementary School new construction, and the Norwalk High School project as well, with anticipation to submit those no later than June 30th of this year. Those are moving along. We're working with the Board of Ed in finalizing ed specs for Cranberry. As you may be aware, the ed specs for Norwalk High School have been completed and approved by the Board of Ed back in February. And the ed specs for Narrowneck are a simple ed spec that will be approved by the Board of Ed, I believe, at the end of this month. Or at least that's when we're anticipating they will be completed.
Got it?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Now the presentation of the Jefferson Elementary School renovation as new project. Alan, how are we going to do this?
Jim's going to do introduction and then provide a status report and scheduling, and then I guess Jim will present the presentation team.
Yeah, I'm going to have Mike do the presentation on Jefferson, if that's okay with you, Alan.
Yeah, Mike Firenza, Mike
Fienza.
Fienza. Okay, and Mike Firenza works for Jim. Well, work for the company. There's Mike.
I put together a brief history of the project for everyone that may not be aware of it, that I was planning to read prior to the presentation starting. So following the creation of a 10-year facility demographic and utilization study of the Norwalk Public Schools, results yielded a growing student population. Once the growth was identified, the city and Board of Education deployed an infrastructure refurbishment plan centered around the I-95 corridor where the growth was occurring. With the expansion of the PONUS Ridge School to a pre-K through 8th grade model, it would allow for the relief of overcrowding at the Jefferson Elementary School and the ability for the district to remove portable classrooms, renovate the existing building, infill a section of the building to create permanent classrooms, and adding a standalone gymnasium to separate it from the current auditorium and cafeteria. In 2019, the city fully funded the Jefferson Renovate as New project and applied for a state grant through the State Office of School Construction Grants and Review. Subsequently, the city purchasing department issued requests for proposals for a project architect and construction management firm. After review of the submissions, Antonazi Associates was selected as the project architect and Newfield Construction as the project construction manager. Since the selection of the project team, meetings have taken place with all stakeholders from the Board of Education and city to establish requirements and create a design for the project. Currently, the project schematic design and associated estimate have been completed. The project is currently on schedule and within the approved budget, and the design is progressing. Joining the meeting tonight, we have members from the design team from Antonazi Associates, Mike Lasasso and Lisa Yates, Phil Katz, the civil and site engineer from Stantec, and Eric O'Brien, the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineer from CES. And following the completion of the design presentation, we also have a presentation describing the energy efficiency options that have been investigated for the building. And with that, I'll turn the presentation over to Lisa Yates from Antonazi.
I'm sorry, Mike, this is Alan again. I just want to interrupt. Two things I want you to mention. The first thing, the budget for the project. The second thing, it's in terms of schedule. We should talk about schedule a little bit. Mike?
What's that? You want, oh.
Mike, can you talk about the budget? What's the budget for the project is, as well as the schedule for next, when we go up to the state and start construction and completion date?
Hold on 1 second. Let me just pull the schedule up so I give you the most.
Oh, it's actually on it's part of the presentation?
It's not part of the presentation. I just want to open the schedule so that I give you the exact dates.
And what's the budget?
33 million.
And it's a renovation as new project.
Correct, yes. And my VPN connection to the city server just stopped.
All right, so the plan here is to go for design phases and to go out to bid in January of next year, roughly, and start construction probably January. And then the construction will go on for a little more than a year, and with completion in the early summer of 2022, right? And the goal is to open the school in August or September of 2022, and yeah, and then move Jefferson student back from Ponus to the existing Jefferson school. Is that correct, Jim?
That is correct.
Question. So they're going to spend a full year and a half at the Ponus location?
Two full years.
Years?
Yeah.
Thank
So Jefferson School, the way it is now, is going to basically be vacant for Jefferson's going to move into Ponus beginning in September, this September, and so the building will generally be empty for next few months until we start construction. Okay, Lisa, please stop.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lisa Yates from Antonazi Associates. And as Mike Fienza mentioned, we have Michael Lasasso from Antonazi with us as well. And Phil Katz of Stantec, our civil engineer, and also Eric Gibrian. I'm murdering your last name, Eric. You'll have to fix that later. I'll switch to your presentation after we get through we have two sets, one for architecture and site, and then we're going to get into energy efficiency and the engineering approaches to sustainability. But first, for these next few slides, I'd like to let Phil Katz introduce the site. So Phil, you've got two slides. Here's our we're reviewing site development and design progress in this portion of the presentation. And this is the existing site, if you would like to talk about that. So that would be Phil.
Lisa, if you wouldn't mind,
Not at all.
maybe I'll jump in. This is Mike Lasasso with Antonazzi Associates. I'm a principal at the firm, and just a quick overview. We were actually fortunate enough to be awarded the conceptual design analysis of the project, so we got very familiar with it at the onset. The existing facility is a 3-story structure built, as you are probably aware, into a hillside, so it's a very challenging site in many regards. The additions that we're providing to the project include the addition of a gymnasium and also a infill classrooms that occur on the first level, or lower, I should say, level of the site underneath the building itself. I wanted to just interject too that we're currently in design development. This meeting we had actually anticipated a little bit earlier than it occurred, but was, I think, postponed largely because of the pandemic. We've continued to move forward with the project, and we anticipate completing our design development phase by the end of, or I should say sometime in June of 2020. Much of our municipal submissions, particularly those associated with site development, will be presented at that time. Then we'll continue with approval from the city into the design or construction documents phase. And then as Alan and Mike recapped, we will anticipate going to the state for review at the end of this year with an anticipated bid next year. Much of the energy and green building issues that I think we heard read at the public comment portion are applicable, I think, to this project. Even just bringing the existing facility up to the current energy code makes a substantial difference in its energy consumption, or I should say the reduction of it. And as Lisa forecasted, Eric Gabriel will be going into great detail in terms of the green energy resources that we've actually considered for the project. So Phil, are you on the line?
I am, yes.
I'll
Hear me?
transition over to you then to
Yes.
Okay,
review the site.
okay. Good evening. My name is Philip Katz. I'm project manager at Stantec in New Haven. Let me just orient you to the existing site. The drawing is oriented north to the right. Route 7 is just off the page down below. The school fronts Van Buren, Grandview on the north, and Bedford to the south. To the north of Grandview is a staff parking lot. Buses currently come in underneath the building at the corner of Grandview, kind of go around the circle and go out. In the south of the site is the parking for parents and a little drop-off area. And then in the rear of the site, there's several temporary classrooms in the garden and the playground. The buildings will be removed, and we'll redo the whole back area. If you go to the next slide, which shows the proposed.
Phil, before you go, on that last slide, it's Tom Livingston.
Okay,
It looks like the city doesn't own the entire parking lot to the north. Is that correct?
yes, there appears to be some portion that's owned by the state of Connecticut, the DOT. We're trying to investigate into that, if there was some easements or rights that were granted by the state for that to happen. I don't think we have quite an answer to that yet, but we're looking into that.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, this is Alan speaking. Yeah, I am on behalf of the city is looking into it just to get confirmation there's no issues there. But it's been, I mean, the city has that use of that portion of the property ever since we built the school. So I don't anticipate any issues, but at the same time, we are looking into it. The only other thing I want to mention that is that I want to make it very clear, the portable classroom, there's 10 portable classrooms. The white portion is 8 classroom, and the west of that, I guess, there's 2 more classrooms that was put in probably like 6 years ago or something like that. Current enrollment Jim, if correct me if I'm wrong, it's about 520. And at the end of the day, this school is going to be about 450, and it will be back to a neighborhood school. Am I correct? That's it.
Yeah, you're correct. I think it's a little bit less than 450, Alan.
Okay.
I don't have the number in front of me.
Either
But
420 or 450. So,
Sport 27 was actually what we're designing to.
okay, very good. Thank you. Sorry. I'm done.
So Lisa, if we can move to the next slide. So this is the proposed school, same orientation again. So what we're proposing at the staff parking lot on the north side is to just mill and overlay that pavement just to get a better surface for parking. The parking lot to the south where the parents drop off, what we're going to do is kind of raise that parking lot up a bit. If you're familiar with the school, as you come in off the street, you're kind of high and then it kind of dips down and it dips again and it goes back up when you get to the school. So we're going to try and level that a bit, with some of the excess excavation that we have. There will be some retaining walls needed right up near the drop-off area. So we need to reconstruct, put some new retaining walls in there. But what the parents will be able to do is come in off of Bedford, come up the road, come up to the plaza. We're going to create a plaza between those two portions of the building. So students can be dropped off there, in a much more organized manner than they currently are. There'll be some accessible parking up near there. And then parents can exit or they can choose to park there. We're making a pedestrian connection from Bedford to the school as there exists one right now. There was a request to do that, so we're doing that. On the east side, right near Van Buren, we're creating a playground for younger students. This will be elevated and behind, a fence, so they're not going to be right near traffic or anything. But that allow, for kindergarten and pre-kindergarten, I think, students to play there. Tucked right between the drop-off and the playground is a set of stairs, and that's how staff will enter the building. They'll come from the parking lot to the north, cross at Grandview, come down Grandview, and then come up the stairs and then into the main entrance to the building. Currently, they kind of come on the side off of Grandview, but again, we're going to infill all that area, so they won't be able to get through that area to get to the entrance. Coming around, kind of going counterclockwise on the site, we're going to reconstruct the loading dock, kind of clean that up a bit, repave it, put in a ramp so it's a little easier for them to get packages and whatnot up onto the dock there. Reconstruct that wall, and then as we're going around to the rear of the building, we want to create a bus drop-off loop right near the intersection. One of the main goals was kind of to segregate what the buses and with the parents, and we feel we can do that in the rear there. And this will be open only during drop-off and pickup. So once that movement is done, there's a gate that's across there that'll be closed so that the kids can play in the back there safely. In that loop, we're looking at creating a couple playgrounds there for older children. Still remains to be seen what equipment will be in there and what that'll look like, but we're reserving space for that. There's also space reserved just north of the bus drop off, for a garden. There is a garden up there right now, so we're reserving a space for that. We're still waiting to see exactly what those details will be. So as you come in that bus loop, you'll see we're creating a drop-off area at the new entrance. The gym is shown in green there, so students will be able to be dropped off at that area. One of the big things we're looking at right now is to address some of the drainage issues that are there. This is a big slope that comes off the rear of the property, and everything kind of gets stuck up against that building. There's a couple drop pipes that come through the retaining walls, one on the western side of, or the southern side of the school, and then there's one kind of in the northeast. We investigated that, we've TV'd that just to see what that works, and what we're trying to do is then reduce the amount of water that goes to those areas, to make sure they still function, and add also additional catch basins and whatnot. Oh, one of the things I forgot to mention was down in that parking lot where students can be dropped off by parents, is we'll have an underground stormwater detention system so that we can make sure that we meet both state and city of Norwalk drainage standards to treat quality and quantity of stormwater. So I think that's most of what I wanted to say for the site. So I'll turn it back to, or have any questions, or turn it back over to the next presenter.
Phil, I got a quick question.
Sure.
So as far as the
Hey,
original,
Kadeem, just introduce yourself for the record.
I'm sorry, Kadeem Roberts. So my question is, the original, from the prior slide, the original bus schedule now loop is changed, and it's more so off of, what is that, Grandview? It's on the other side of Grandview. Okay, so that's the new bus loop now, correct?
Right.
All right, so then that means that the students will enter, and they can enter both sides basically now. As far as if the parents drop off on the front side next to Van Buren, and then they'll be entering in the back side as well.
Right. And the reason we wanted to get it away, because right now it's right at the intersection, or pretty close to the intersection, and that's bad from a traffic perspective. It also goes under the building, which, as I understand from the architect's perspective, that's a security issue of having vehicles driving underneath that. So we looked for another place that we could put it, so it's kind of, again, segregating parent drop off with the vehicle, with their cars, and the buses. So it's a much safer operation.
Got it, definitely.
Tom?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, this is David Huvelman. I have a question. You're now creating two entrances into the building. What does that do from a security standpoint with the different standards now that are in place for securing a building? I mean, is this going to be an additional security guard issue, things like that moving forward?
So this is
Pass that to the architects.
I'd like to address that.
This is Lisa Yates with Antonazi again. I'll briefly address it now. I will go through that question more as I go through the plans. But the idea is that this first floor entrance is your main entrance, and it is your main security point. The entrance up here is more of a timed entrance for bus drop off only. Also, when I get into the building itself, there's a second line of lock off up here for after hours in the gym. But this is very much a secondary entrance, and this is the main entrance with the man trap and all of that sort of thing. And all of the other doors into the building, with the possible exception of this one into the cafeteria. All of the other doors are exit only.
So the bus entrance, this is David Huvelman again, the bus entrance will not have a man trap entrance.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
So now I will briefly walk you through the plans and point out some of the salient features of the building. And as I go through this, it sort of repeats the sequence. First, I'm showing you this is the area that is new construction, and this is the infill underneath the existing building, which does improve safety, as Phil pointed out. And we're also adding a slight addition here at the front of the building, and that enables us to put in two vestibules. One is for entering, this is the man trap, and this is an exit only vestibule. So you come in here and security is right here. There's a window to the outside from security just so that they can see what's going on. And then they can buzz you into the first, and then, do the Raptor check and that sort of thing. And you can come right into the main office. So part of what we did here, this is an existing building. So we kept the structure, we kept vertical circulation elements like the stairs and the elevators where they are. Same with major mechanical pathways, although Eric will get into we're full MEP replacement. But with the interior layout in the walls, we were able to make some pretty big changes. And one of them was we were able to bring the entire administration wing, with the exception of a couple of offices on the 3rd floor, down here. So this is more organized right now. You go in and you have to go upstairs to go to the admin wing. So you enter right into the main office. On this first level, we've got pre-K out on this side and kindergarten here. So these classrooms have the, child-size toilets integrated into the classrooms. This is parent-teacher conference over here. As you get onto this side, you have the first grade. And for the first graders, we still have child-appropriate bathrooms, but they're slightly more separate for a little bit more independence. This is Renovate is new. This is a Connecticut high-performance building, as state schools are required to be, which means that we go through a series of sustainability options. And some of the things that we'll be doing where, we're recycling all the construction waste, we use local and recycled products. Phil's trying hard for a reduction of the water leaving the site. We're doing a reduction of water usage inside with the plumbing fixtures. We use cutoff lighting at the site. There are dozens of things that we're working on in that direction. Also, and Eric will get into photovoltaic on the roof when he gets into his presentation. So this is a cutaway view of the first floor. Again, the green is showing you the new construction. And here's our new entrance.
Lisa, this is Tom Livingston again. It looks like there's an entrance on the north side.
So this is an exit only.
Okay.
This is the service wing over here. So as we get up to the second floor, you'll be able to see a door into the service wing, but the stair has exit only, and this is also exit only. And I was actually gonna point out about this corridor that's developing here, which used to be exterior. We slope down, a gentle slope. It's not a handicapped ramp. It doesn't have to have rails. We slope down 16 inches to give a little bit more headroom for this new addition. And then we step down further to get this exit to align with Grandview. So I'll move up to the second floor. So the second floor, again, just to show you what we're adding. This is an optional convenience stair, and it allows for entry from Grand Avenue. This can also be locked off, and I'll talk about this more when we get up to the upper level. But it gives you a pedestrian option for accessing the upper level of the site, both for during the day. I know sometimes they like to park kids up here and then send them upstairs when this door is not in use. They can also lock this one after hours and bring people up to use the gym area. But that's better talked about from the third floor. So I'll address it again when I get up there. This is currently your multi-purpose space, which is currently the gymnasium, the cafeteria, and the auditorium. By removing the gym function and moving it upstairs, we're able to really use all this space all of the time for more efficient dining. We were able to expand the servery area out into the main space, which is going to make this kitchen much more functional also. So this is a whole new kitchen. We added a nice hand washing station and some toilets in here too. I think the old restrooms were over here and they were pretty cramped. So we'll be able to reduce the number of dining waves that you currently have now. Currently, I believe you have 6, where you had 6 before March. On this level, we have a pretty streamlined layout for the classrooms, which is designed to give you guys flexibility as we are moving forward. Our resource classrooms, for instance, are all sort of capable of being multi-purposed. Over here, we have the art area, and then we have the second grade wing over here, and the third grade wing is over here. And this is our music department. And again, we're maintaining the existing stairs. We're coming through and putting all new windows throughout the building.
Hey, Lisa, it's Tom again. On the kitchen, do you have tray washing facilities?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe they are. I think they're down here.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Lisa, this is David Huvelman. I have a question about handicap access and elevator.
Oh, great question. So this is with the state, it's a Renovate's new project. So we have, there's an existing freight elevator back here, which we're going to reconstruct. And that's not so much for ADA, but the passenger elevator that is over here, we're going to replace in its entirety. Right now, there's an elevator there. It's not stretcher compliant, so the new elevator will be bigger. It will be stretcher compliant. The entire facility, all of the toilet rooms are going to be redone. All of the doorways, everything will be ADA compliant.
Thank you.
Lisa, this is Alan. I have a question. I remember there was some conversation about the existing shaft for the elevator wasn't big enough. Was that figured out at this point?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
We shoehorned it in there.
Okay, thank you.
So the elevator actually happens to be over in this area next to the central stair there, and the freight elevator is down in this area. It's right there. So this shows the area of the new stair. It has a little vestibule over here, which we will maintain. It will be locked most of the time. You can see our new infill area is set back a little bit underneath the second floor to match the south hexagon wing. And this starts to show our new entrance. So the entrance is on this side, so we have a little bit of a canopy over there. So we get up to the third floor, you see larger areas of addition. So we have the stair and the new gym and entry wing. And just so we can look at this a little bit more closely. The way that this is set up, this is a timed entry, but this door can also be locked off. So we have the capability of allowing for just the gym to be used and not activating the rest of the school. And the stair can support this if we want to prevent the bus loop from being used and we want to still allow people up here. And this is again this is a budget alternate at this time. So the upper level maintains the same layout as the floor below, largely because it's an efficient way to work this building. This is the science lab over here, and this is the 4th grade. We have more resource classrooms over here, and the 5th grade. And I didn't mention downstairs, we're building breakout spaces in to the plan. So these are sort of locker cubbies, but they're kind of protected. So you're mingling with your own grade in both cases. And then we have a breakout space for one-on-one out here in the middle. And we're building storage in where we can also. As upstairs for the upper, this is true on the 2nd and the 3rd floor, we have adult-sized bathrooms for the kids. Since they're getting a little bit bigger, we have an expanded maker space attached to the Learning Commons library. And we're opening up this stair just with mag hold opens on the doors, but we're allowing during the day sort of penetration into this lobby. And then a new gym, which it's fairly straightforward, a few toilet rooms, a storage area, a PE office, and this is occupational therapy. So that's this 3rd floor layout.
Lisa?
Yes.
Question, Greg Burnett.
Oh, go ahead, Greg.
For access to the gym, especially during weekends for public access, how would someone access to the 3rd floor gym without walking through the school?
Okay, so I'll take you back to the 2nd floor. There's a vestibule here right now. And we're going to maintain this vestibule with updated hardware and doors. This door can be locked off And I think the way that they were going to do this, public isn't going to be using this unless there's a staff member there to let people in. But pedestrians can come in here, use this stair, and then go up to the 3rd floor and come across. And then this door can be locked off, so they can use this.
Okay.
The alternative would be to open up the bus loop, but we didn't want that to be the only alternative, because then you're introducing parking on the upper level, and that was, that's not necessarily the most desirable thing. We want to maintain the sort of the park-like feel that's up there now, and a driveway that doesn't have buses on it will foster that. If cars park all over there, it will be less that way.
This is David Huebman, just so I'm understanding. So it's you come inside, go outside, and then back inside to the gymnasium.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa, it's Kadeem Roberts. This slide actually is perfect. So you see how you have the entrance right here in the middle? These are all just straight walls, correct? There's no balcony to look over.
No, they're all, there's no, there's a 2-foot cantilever here, but there's.
No, I'm saying in the middle, right here, like where you're right there. Yeah.
So
That's
there's
floor to
yeah,
floor.
this is the main, no, there's no balcony above.
Okay,
This is just a canopy.
gotcha.
So yeah, this is the main entry, and then this is the secondary.
Got it.
And then this is weekends. And also it's handy because right now they park some of the younger kids in the cafeteria area, and they can hold them there and release them up the stairs when their buses come and keep them separate. There are lots of segregation strategies that we worked on with the school. And I put the lid on. So this shows you the entire school, the view from Van Buren and Grandview. The green, I've been showing you all the major additions, but we're also showing, we're adding some roof screens, the canopies. We have some pop-ups for the elevators, so you can bring big things up in the elevators. And again, the new windows. Eric will talk about PV on the roof, and I'll show you the view from the other side. So our bus loop, which isn't drawn on here, will come and drop off in this area. And this will be the entry sequence. These are glass blocks built into the gym that kind of point you to the entrance. And actually in this view, you can really see how the building sets into the hill. This retaining wall, for anybody who's been out there, that's very tall, and it's got a 10-foot fence on top of it right now. So that is a basic sum up of the building. I can answer any more questions before we switch over to Eric.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, let's turn it to Eric, just in the interest of time.
Okay, and Eric, take it away. Tell me what to do. I'll advance slides for you on command.
And Eric, again, this is Tom again. As you go through it, if you're able to sort of reference the comments I read earlier from the one public participant.
Sure. And can everyone hear me? Okay, good. And Tom, if you want to remind me, if I'll try and hit the points, but if there's certain comments that you want me to hit that I didn't, we can always address those. So my name is Eric Gebrin from Consulting Engineering Services, also called CES in Middletown, Connecticut. We are the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection designers for this project. And as Lisa and Michael alluded to, I'll be going through some of the energy efficiency options that we've considered for this school. But I'm also just going to give a quick overview of the HVAC system, which is the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system that we've selected so far first. And so, Lisa, if you go to the next slide. Okay, I think I had this slide. These slides might have gotten out of order. So just to give a brief overview of just general alternative energy options that we like to look at on almost any building project from the get-go. And you may have heard of some of these words. I'm just going to go through them briefly one by one. Geothermal, that's a common system that is used, and that essentially uses the consistent temperature of the ground to provide more efficient heating and cooling of the building, and I'll go into a little more detail about exactly how that works later. Photovoltaic, as we've mentioned numerous times already, and that's probably something people are most familiar with. You're seeing it all over houses and buildings these days. Prices are dropping rapidly. It's a much more viable option. And that's the little image in the center there. Fuel cells is something that maybe some of you have heard of. Essentially, a fuel cell is a device or a machine that takes in a fuel source, most often natural gas, burns it to create both heat and energy to run a turbine. So essentially, you burn natural gas to create heat and then also electricity at the same time. You kind of get a 2-for-1 deal there. Wind, something, again, you're probably familiar with, wind power. Microturbines, maybe a little less familiar. Microturbines are very similar to fuel cells in that you're taking a fuel source like natural gas, burning it to create heat, and then also using that energy to create electricity at the same time. And then the last one is solar hot water. That's that image over on the left, which is very similar to photovoltaic in that we're using the energy of the sun to create a different kind of energy. So in the case of photovoltaic, we're using the sun to translate that into electricity to directly power the building systems. Solar hot water, we're taking the energy from the sun to create hot water for free. So we looked at these options on this particular project, and then the next slide I'll talk about why we're looking at 2 of them. And Lisa, actually, just go back for a second. I'll just touch again on the 4 at the bottom that we don't feel are feasible for this project, and quite often we rarely find that they're feasible just because of a cost standpoint and also an energy standpoint. So both fuel cells and microturbines, in order for them to be truly effective and justify the cost of installing them, you need to have a constant need for heat. So if you think about a building in New England, we need heat all winter long, but then come spring, summer, and fall, we don't need that heat. So these devices both need to be putting out heat year round, 24/7, 365 days a year in order for them to really truly be effective. And so if we don't have anywhere to put that heat, it doesn't really work. So those systems typically aren't viable. If we had, let's say, a large high school with a large indoor pool that needed to be heated year round, that's generally where we see that those systems make sense. But at our school, that we don't have that. So because we don't have a place to put that heat, it's not a viable option for this project. Wind is big on like like you guys have seen projects out in the Sound. There's projects out in Long Island Sound now that are being proposed, or large fields. As far as buildings go, wind really isn't practical to put on a building. And solar PV is a much more practical option to use energy to make electricity. And then the last one, solar hot water. Again, when you're competing for roof space, a photovoltaic panel is a much more efficient use of the roof and produces ultimately a lot more energy for you. And so solar hot water, again, is not, if you have the roof space for it, we should maximize with PV. And so Lisa, now go to the next slide. So given that brief overview, these are the 2 options that we're looking at more in depth and doing some actual crunching some numbers for this particular project to see what the feasibility would look like. It's both geothermal and photovoltaic. And so go to the next slide. Okay, so just to give an overview of the HVAC system that we've proposed, as Lisa mentioned, this is renovate to new. So we have all new mechanical systems, all new electrical systems, plumbing and fire protection systems. So nothing that's in the building right now is going to remain for those systems. So for the HVAC system we're proposed, we have a packaged DOAS, which stands for Dedicated Outdoor Air System, with air source, VRF, and hot water heat. And that's a bunch of lingo, so I'll explain that briefly. Dedicated outdoor air simply means that we are bringing in 100% fresh air directly to all the classrooms individually, and then exhausting that air from each classroom out the building. So that's a huge advantage for both indoor air quality and energy efficiency. Older systems supply air to the classroom, return some of that air back to the classroom, and then bring in fresh air to kind of mix with it, and the air from the entire building largely mixes. So especially with COVID happening now, I think DOAS is even more so a better solution. because we're directly ventilating and then directly exhausting each of the classrooms. And then VRF simply stands for variable refrigerant flow. And in a nutshell, if you're familiar with like a Mitsubishi ductless split that you might have in your house, or Daikin is another company that makes them, you have a unit on the wall, for example, that does heating and cooling, and then you have a unit outside that pairs with it. This is basically a much larger commercial version of that same system. So we have multiple indoor units, one for each classroom, one for each room, and then multiple outdoor units that work together. And so that's the system that we're using more and more these days because it's become extremely efficient at heating and cooling. It's far more efficient than existing systems that you'll see in schools that are 10, 20 plus years old. It's got great turn down as far as doing part load heating and cooling. And there's a lot of flexibility with how you can configure it. And then lastly, hot water heat. So we are proposing a natural gas boiler plant for this building. The building, I should note, currently does not have natural gas to the site, but we are working with Eversource to get it to the site. It's currently heated, the building is heated all by electricity, which is very expensive. And so natural gas is a much lower cost fuel to heat with. So there'll be a hot water boiler plant that will supply hot water for the entire building to perimeter radiation, and it will also provide the heating for the DOAS ventilation system. I'll pause there. Just any questions before I move on some of this kind of detailed HVAC stuff.
Eric, this is Kadeem Roberts. The prior slide before that, you said the top would be, you said solar panels?
Yeah, go back. The top, you mean the top system that we'd be considering?
Yes.
Yeah, these are the two, I think, yeah. So photovoltaic, and I'll go into why in a second, I think is the most realistic, sustainable system that we could have on this project. Geothermal, not as much, and I'll explain why. It's mostly to do with financials.
I was gonna ask that as far as like the maintenance on it and stuff like that. So that's why I was gonna, okay.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll get into that. With photovoltaics, the maintenance would be through a third party. Geothermal, it would be directly with the school.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right, so we'll go to 2 slides. Okay, so if you kind of flip back to the last slide and then back again to this slide, just not that you're going to know exactly what this is, but it's a little visual. Okay, go back to the next slide. What I'm trying to illustrate here is the base HVAC system that we've proposed. You can convert a system like that into a geothermal system. And so basically, instead of using the air outside to both reject and absorb heat from, and I realize it'll get a little technical here, and I'll go through it in a second on a subsequent slide. We're using the groundwater to absorb and reject heat from. So if you just imagine that in the wintertime, the way this system works, it's trying to pull heat from the air outside that's cold. So it can do that, but it doesn't do it very efficiently because the air is cold. In the summertime, we're doing the reverse. We're trying to pull some cooling out of the air that's warm. And so with geothermal, you're doing that instead of with air, with the groundwater. And the groundwater is always a relatively consistent 45 to 65 degrees. And so because of that consistency, the system works more efficiently. And that's kind of the rough basis of the way that geothermal works. So the geothermal option for this school that we looked at is exactly that. It's taking the same DOAS ventilation system, the same Mitsubishi or Daikin heat pump cooling and heating system, and just kind of adding the geothermal piece to it. And so we'd still have the same indoor units feeding the classroom, the same direct ventilation air and exhaust air from the classrooms. It's just outside in the site, instead of having units up on the roof that are just bigger versions of what you might see outside your house, your air conditioning unit outside your house. Instead of having those up on the roof, we would have a series of wells drilled out in the field that you wouldn't see, of course, because they're underground. And those would be interfacing with a different type of system inside the building. And that's kind of the major difference there. And so Lisa, go to the next slide and I'll get into that a little bit more. So again, and again, this gets a little confusing, but I'm just going to attempt to explain it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me, but I was hoping this slide might illustrate it. So you look at the two buildings in the summertime on the left, let's say you're 90 degrees out and the ground is about 55 to 65 degrees. So we're trying to either with air source, which is the base system versus geothermal source, we're trying to cool the building interfacing with outdoor air that's 90 degrees or cool groundwater that's 55 to 65 degrees. So you might understand just right off the bat why it would be more efficient to cool with the groundwater. Same thing in the wintertime. At 0 degrees outside, we're trying to heat with that air, but the ground temperature is much warmer, so it's more efficient. And we're not trying to heat with 0 degree air. That's obviously not possible. The system, the way a heat pump works is it moves heat energy from one source to another. So your refrigerator, for example, is a good example of a mini version of it. Your refrigerator cools the inside of the refrigerator and it actually heats your room off the backside. And so this is very much the same thing. At least I'll go to the next slide. So geothermal system components, the major component is the geothermal well field. And what that is a series of bores drilled roughly 500 feet deep into the earth and spaced roughly 20 feet on center. So for a big commercial project like this, we need a lot of those wells, and I'll show you a plan in a second that gives a rough idea of how many and how much that would cost. So that's the expensive piece of this. Even though it is more efficient than the base air source system we're proposing, it costs a lot of money to go out and drill all of those wells. And you can imagine drilling 500 feet, it's pretty costly. Then there's a series of pumps, heat exchanger, and then heat pumps. So again, the pros of this are they're extremely quiet, energy efficient. The equipment is hidden. So instead of having a bunch of equipment up on the roof, you have the hidden wells out in the field. But again, the cons, cost is a big one. If you don't have enough site area to do it, it can be an issue. We do have a limited site here. I think there's just enough space to do geothermal if we did. But again, that can be a con. And then go to the next slide. So this is the specific look at this project. So we're here on an overhead shot of the school, again, similar to the civil plan we just looked at. The likely spot that we looked was the back field, of course, where we're doing a lot of site work anyway. So, Lisa, you can point to the temporary classrooms that are going away. So the yellow rectangle would represent very roughly how much area we would need to take up for these boreholes. So we would need to drill about 90 boreholes spaced about 20 feet on center all over this site, about 500 feet deep, and then put in a series of pipes, run pipes over to the building, and then cover that all back up with dirt and then do our site work. So a lot of costs associated there. It's roughly $10,000 to $12,000 per borehole. Our total peak building load is about 193 tons. And then I'll get into the financials in a second, but any questions there while we're just looking at the site about this geothermal option and what it represents?
Well, this is Greg Burnett. One general question I have is, are we using this geothermal option at any other facility or school here in Norwalk? For example, we're doing a renovation as new at Ponus. Are we using this option in Ponus?
This is Alan. The answer is no. We typically look at each project specifically. In fact, Ponus, we're not even replacing the boilers. So the boiler is existing. So again, each project is different, but we do analysis of what makes sense for each property. Again, Ponus project, it's not a renovated, it's new. Ponus is a new building, and then we're still using I think there's some rooftop units, and we're using the boiler to provide hot water for heating purposes throughout the building. So again, we're not even changing the heating system. So we're not, that's why, in fact, we just brought gas to the property because those are, we replaced the burner from oil to gas.
So is there something unique about the Jefferson location that makes this option the best option?
No, we didn't get there yet. We don't think it's the best option. We just want to go for analysis and show the committee the thoughts behind it, what is involved, and then I guess the next two slides starts to show what the financial situation is, right?
Right. Yep. So why don't we go to the next slide and we'll talk about that. So this is just a look at, so the, air source, which is the base system, the one that we're proposing that we go with versus the geothermal source, which, as Alan said on the next slide, will show why I think financially it doesn't work well for this project. This is one of the differences here. On the left, the image that you see, those are what the outdoor units look like that would be up on the roof that are doing, they're basically rejecting heat from the school or absorbing to provide heat to the school. Versus on the right, it's basically the same type of thing. It's just indoors, and it has a bunch of water pumped through it that goes out to the geothermal well field to either absorb heat or get rid of heat. So those are really the major differences between the two. And then go to the next slide, which is we looked at some energy modeling of the school. How much energy is it going to take to heat and cool the school year round? What is the efficiency of the base air source VRF system, which is the top line, versus the increased efficiency of the geothermal source VRF? And you can see the base system, everything is zeroed out because we're considering that our base. The geothermal system, the extra cost, and again, these are all very preliminary numbers. We're earlier in the design process, so these are not bid numbers by any chance or by any sense, but they are estimates of this particular project based on past projects that we've done and based on the scope of work that we believe would be required. So it's roughly call it $1 million, give or take, additional cost to drill the geothermal well field. So that's a lot of money, obviously, and that's in line with other projects that we've studied this on. The energy reduction, it does give you, and this is where it might seem a little counterintuitive, it gets you about 60%, 63% more energy efficiency over the air source system on the whole, but the energy cost savings for the entire year is only 14%. And the reason for that is the geothermal system is entirely electric, both in the cooling mode and in the heating mode, where in the air source version, we have natural gas boilers. And so even though the natural gas boilers use more energy to heat the building, natural gas is so much cheaper than electricity on an energy basis. And so that's where the financials get a little out of whack. So geothermal, extremely energy efficient, but it uses electricity all year round. And even though it's more efficient, the electricity cost versus natural gas cost kind of upsets the financial analysis. So
Eric, if I could,
Yep.
Tom Livingston, I see you have no rate escalation built into this.
That's right. Looking at this very simply, I just wanted to show, again, 58 years is a long time. With the way things are now, a rate escalation is a little unpredictable, but if you say, roughly a 3% rate escalation, that payback gets you down somewhere around 40 years, maybe in the high 30s.
And what would you consider a reasonable payback period?
A reasonable payback period, I would think, would want to be certainly under 20 years, closer to 15.
Oh, thank you.
To make it palatable. Yes. And you can see our notes at the bottom there. What this analysis was based on, and again, I know there's more specifics to the utility rates, and I'd be happy to share different figures if someone wants us to look at different utility rates. But this was about 20 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity, and about $1.90 a therm for natural gas. Again, with no rate escalation. Any other questions on the cost analysis of geothermal? All right, so move to the next slide. All right, so photovoltaics, this is where things are maybe a little more positive. I think this is a more realistic option for this project, and that's partially due to a partner, a third-party company that Norwalk has vetted as I'm not sure what they are, Alan, but they're basically a vetted third-party vendor, and that firm is Green Skies. And so rather than the school and the city paying outright for a solar panel system to be put on the roof, Green Skies would propose a system that they would install on the roof of the school at no cost to the city or the project. And they would own and operate that system for 20 years. And it would the way it would work is it would reduce the energy use that you pay because you're now making electricity off the roof of your solar panels, and then you would be paying a rate back to Green Skies also for the energy that the array produces. And so you're saving money on your utility bills every month and then paying money to Green Skies, but the way it works out, it nets out that you're ultimately paying less. And the benefit is you didn't pay for it up front. So it's a zero cost to the city, zero cost to the project, and there is a little bit of cost savings year after year after that. And so flip right to the next slide where I think we have the layout. So this is an overview, and there's a zoom in on the next slide. So stay on this one for a second, but if we wanna, we can zoom in a second and see the specifics of the layout. This is the preliminary layout that Green Skies put together, and this was based on an analysis that they do looking at the Google Maps and 3D views and things like that. So on the top right corner of the slide, you can see we have an estimated peak building electrical demand of 400 kilowatts. And that's, the highest hour of the year. That's how high the building is going to peak at with the new design that we've proposed. And then right below that, estimated annual megawatt hour. So a megawatt is 1,000 kilowatts. So 315 megawatt hours or 315,000 kilowatt hours is the total annual energy usage that we project for the new school design. With the PV system layout that you see on the screen, each of the blue rectangles represents one solar panel, and these would be the same size panels that you would see on your house. I think they're like 30 by, I don't know if it has it on there, but 30 by 50 roughly inches. We're able to fit a system that would output a maximum of 120 kW and generate a yearly production of 185.5 megawatt hours. And so that's, almost half of the energy use of the entire building. So that's a pretty decent array. We have the benefit of having a decent amount of roof space that's actually usable on this project, even though it looks like there's some areas that aren't in use. It would involve, if you can see, actually, Lisa, why don't you flip to the next slide? We can see the blow up a little better. In order to get the output that we just talked about, there's some trees in green that they identified to be removed. And again, this is not officially being proposed necessarily. This is just their analysis that said, excuse me, if you want to get the absolute most out of your solar panel array, we would need to remove those trees because they're shading the roof. But this is the proposed layout, and that would generate the electricity that we just talked about on the previous slide. Any questions here?
Yeah, so Eric, Tom again,
Yep.
have you done an analysis of both photovoltaic with the geothermal in terms of costs? Because you said the geothermal needs a lot of electricity. Could this generate that electricity?
That's a good question. It is a good question. The PV would generate part of the electricity for the geothermal, but the payback, to answer your question, no, we didn't look specifically at the synergy between the two. But it's given that the payback was as high as, again, with no rate escalation, 58, with rate escalation somewhere around 40 or a little less. It would not, just based on past experience, it wouldn't get us down to the point where geothermal would become feasible down at, like a 15-year payback or 20-year payback. It's something we could look at a little closer if you were interested.
Well, I'm sorry, this is Alan.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of superficially, it's kind of makes sense generate electricity to support your geothermal. But when you generate electricity, that you have to pay for the system, but you use the energy for something else, you're not getting savings from it. So makes the solar, the PV not cost effective, because we're using this energy to use. We can't use the energy benefit twice.
Yeah, Alan, I understand that, but it just seems there may be, based on the relative values, there may be some savings. I don't know.
I just want to comment to the point. If you look at the plan itself, this spot here and this spot here is our area not being used. That part of the reason is there's a mechanical unit, and by zoning regulation, we have to put a screen in front of it. So by putting a screen, we couldn't put more panels in these areas. I think that's why. I mean, south is down here, so we could potentially put more panel here. But I think the mechanical unit on here and then the screening prevent us from using that area.
Have you-
panels on the system once you put screening.
Have you considered putting carport type things on the parking lots?
Yeah, I mean, one of the possibilities is do the carport here. The carport, generally speaking, we will look at it when we get to that point. But the thing, typically the carport, because see on solar panels, the roof, there's no structural component to it. So what happens is that you basically put this panel and you hold it down by sandbags or whatever, maybe blocks or something, right? So it's mounted on the roof. There's no structural system, just a racking system. But when you put a carport, you have to actually put foundation in, put framing in to support the system. So the cost, the capital cost of it, you have to do an analysis on it to see whether the payback period, instead of typically we lease this system of 15 to 20 years, depending on what it is. But the system that has a foundation, have a cantilever arms and things, a framing system, it's not be cost effective. So we have to look at that separately.
Yeah, I think Green Skies can weigh in on that. Anyway, I just want to keep this moving because now we're a long meeting. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my last piece. So if there's any other questions, I can answer them.
Are there any questions?
David
Thank you very
Hubel,
much.
I just have one question. Green Skies would handle all of the maintenance of all the PV, and at what point do they replace panels based on degradation over a 20-year span?
The way the system, the relationship between the city and Green Sky work is that the city, by leasing the system from them, we are not putting up the capital costs. And Green Sky, because it's a private sector, they can get tax credit from it. That's why they drive the costs down for the city in a way. So panel typically lasts more than 20 years. So actually there's a buyout provision in our power purchase agreement, which is called PPA, that if after 20 years we still want it, we have option to buy the system from them. But meanwhile, during when it's installed, they did the full maintenance on the system. So if for some reason we have to fix a roof, they have to go shut down portion of it, and we can fix the roof and do what we need to do. But they own the system, they continue to maintain it, and because we are not paying full electric utility to the utility company, let's say 20 cents, whatever it may be, kind of thing, we pay them like 6 cents per kilowatt hours or something like that. So the saving is based on the reduction of kilowatt use. Because we pay the utility company more than we pay for this the Green Skies.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, is there any more questions? Does anybody else any more questions? All right, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on. We got a lot to cover still. Okay, let's move on back to the agenda. This is item C3, review recommendation.
Tom, let me just interrupt. So I guess the Jefferson team could leave now, right?
Oh, yes. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, C3, review recommendation to retain commissioning agent for the Jefferson Elementary School renovation project. Refer the following to Common Council for action. A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Willing, to execute an agreement with Innovative Engineering Services LLC to provide building commissioning services for the Jefferson Elementary School renovators new project for a total not to exceed $58,300. Account noted. B, authorize a contingency for additional services as may be required for a total not to exceed $5,000. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, David. Alan, quickly.
Yeah, Jim, can you go through this?
Sure. As a requirement to meet the Connecticut High Performance Building Standards, we have to have a commissioning agent. And we went through a RFQ, RFP process. I think we received 4 bids for Jefferson. Mike, if you want to just verify that.
That's correct.
Okay, IES was the lowest responsible bidder out of those 4. And we are recommending IES to be the commissioning agent for Jefferson Elementary. Just as a note, IES was also selected for the commissioning agent for the new Columbus School, which is on hold right now. So we do have some experience with them.
Any questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, I'll take a vote. Mr. Burnett,
Aye.
Mr. Hultman,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Roberts,
Aye.
Mr. Keegan,
Aye.
Mr. Satinelli.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. I vote yes, unanimous. Okay, item 4, review IT equipment proposals for Ponus School project. Refer the following to Common Council for action. A, authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order with Omni Data for wireless access points for the Ponus Ridge School addition and alterations project for a total sum of $91,368.44. Account noted. I guess this is an authorize the purchasing agent to issue a change order on purchase order for a total not to exceed $4,568. B, authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order with CDWG LLC for charging cards for the Ponus Ridge School addition and alterations project for a total sum of $27,300. Account noted. Authorize the purchasing agent to issue a change order and purchase order for a total not to exceed $1,365. C, authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order with Raptor Technologies for the visitor management system for the Ponus Ridge School addition and alterations project for a total sum of $1,408. Account noted. Authorize the purchasing agent to issue a change order on purchase order for a total not to exceed $140. Have a motion?
Motion.
David moves it. Thank you.
I'll
Alan?
go first. Yeah. Last month, we presented and the Common Council approved the furniture purchases. As part of that request, I noted in the memo that there's 3 items that we did not get bids on. So these are the 3 items. So we went out and go through state bidding lists and working with purchasing department, and we were able to obtain these prices directly through the state vendor list. So it's pretty straightforward. Total for furniture and everything else, including these items, we budgeted $1.6 million or so. With approval of these 3 items, we would have about $350,000 left.
Yeah, and that would have been used for the new furniture, well, the furniture for the old wing, which we're not going to spend. Any questions on this? Okay, hearing none, take a vote. Mr. Burnett,
Aye.
Mr. Hullerman,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Roberts,
Aye.
Mr. Keegan,
Yes.
Mr. Sacinelli,
Yeah.
and I vote aye, so that's unanimous. Moving on. I am going to, unless there's any objection, I'm going to propose that we table item 5, which is the new Norwalk High School grant application, as being untimely at this point. As you guys know, this was to go to state legislature. State legislature has adjourned for the spring without taking any action because of COVID. So I don't see that we should be looking at this right now. I don't know if there's no objection, we'll just table it.
Question.
Yes.
Yes, Greg Burnett. What is the impact of tabling this and not putting in the application? That means we're not in the position to move forward with the project?
No, I mean, Alan, you can jump in, but I mean, there's nothing to put the application in for, right? Because we don't have any money at this point. June 30 is not the deadline for this one.
Jim I could explain this. What happens because we are looking for 80% reimbursement for this. They require the state to have a special legislation to do this. So, but because of COVID-19, originally they were going to go for approval in April. But since they're not doing it, they probably do, let's just discussions, they do in June or July. So when that happens, then they would set a specific date for this project to submit the application to them. So by not approving this tonight, doesn't mean that we're not going to apply for it. I mean, all we're saying is that we're delayed because their schedule got pushed over. See, the other project is still at June 30th deadline, but because this is the last year's money and then we need a special appropriation, a special legislature to get approval, it's going to be delayed. The state's going to delay this, so the submission date is going to be delayed for this project.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have more information at that point. I mean, it could be moot for all we know. If they have a special session and don't approve it, well,
yeah,
we'll know more though. So again, hearing no objection.
Which we did, just a comment, we did put a placeholder in the capital budget for this project.
But that makes sense because, you know, if it's approved to be approved during the year where you need the money, and this will be submitted during the year. It's just, It's not going to be submitted this year.
Got it.
Right, Alan?
Yes.
Okay. So we're not saying we're not going to approve it, just at this point, it's not timely. Okay, moving on to 6. Item 6, review request to submit a grant application to the state for Cranberry Elementary School, a new school construction project, and for the following to Common Council for approval. A, resolved that the Norwalk Facilities Construction Commission, NFCC, is hereby established as the building committee with regard to the new Cranberry Elementary School, new school construction project. B, resolved that the Norwalk Common Council hereby authorizes at least the preparation of schematic drawings and outline specifications for the new Cranberry Elementary School, new school construction project. And C, resolved that the City of Norwalk Common Council authorize the City of Norwalk Board of Education to apply to the Commissioner of Administrative Services and to accept or reject a grant from the new Cranberry Elementary School, new school construction project. Have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Just to answer a question a couple of you have asked about the NFCC. It is correct that I have and Alan are proposing to the ordinance committee that we abolish that commission. But until we do, it is the official building committee with respect to school projects. So that has to be, we have to authorize them to do this. If and when that ordinance is approved, the land use committee would automatically take that over. All right, Alan or Jim, do you want to say anything about this?
Yeah, I just want to note this. Typically, Common Council would approve would review and approval of capital budget for a project like this in April 15th. So because of the delay, but the submission day of June 30th is still the same. So typically, again, we would do capital budget approval in April, and we would bring forward these action in May. But so because of the virus issue, the council is going to look at capital budget for next week. So it's a little bit awkward, but at the same time is that the approval of the money and the action to apply to state on the same night. So so I guess at a council meeting, the first thing the council need to do is review the budget and assume the council approve the money for this project. Then later on the agenda would be approval of this item. If for some reason the council does not approve the funding for Cranberry, then the council would not approve this item.
Right, items on the council agenda, as we all know, are subject to available funding.
So funding. Right.
Any questions, comments on this one? All right, hearing none, I will call for a vote. Greg?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Barbara?
Yes.
Yes.
Kadeem?
Aye.
Nick? And I vote as well, unanimous. Okay, cruising.
Before you proceed, do we have to vote on tabling the Norwalk High item, or is a vote needed to table that?
Greg, it's an interesting question. I actually purposely did it that way, so I didn't have to put Barbara in a spot of having to recuse herself.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's why I called. I asked if there are any objections. We can ask her to step out and vote on it, but there were no objections noted.
It's up to you guys. I can step out for a moment.
I'm just saying procedurally, should we actually have on record that we voted to table the moving the application forward?
Well, we've done it in the past without a vote, but if you want to do it, Alan, do you have a?
Yes, you're supposed to vote on it.
Okay, Barbara.
Okay. So I'm going to leave. Will someone text me?
Okay.
Somebody text me when I can come back in.
Okay.
Okay.
Let the record note that Ms. Smith is recusing herself from this vote. Okay, so this is a motion to table the consideration of the, I gotta get in front of me, the
item C5,
the Norwalk High School, C5?
Yeah.
Yeah, C5, Norwalk High School construction project. Proposing to table it to a date to be determined in the future. Mr. Burnett?
Aye.
Mr. Hooverman?
Aye.
Mr. Keegan?
Aye.
Mr. Roberts?
Aye.
Mr. Sacchinelli?
Aye.
And I also approve it. Can somebody text Barbara?
I'll do it right now.
Okay, thank you. Greg, I think you're right. I was just trying to shortcut it, but you're absolutely right. Okay, we were on We voted on, did we vote on Cranberry?
Yes.
Okay. So 7, review request to submit a grant application to the state for the Narrowmake Elementary School Kitchen Addition and Cafeteria Alteration Project. Refer the following to Common Council for approval. A, resolved that the Norwalk Facilities Construction Commission is hereby established as the building committee with regard to the Narrowmake Elementary School Kitchen Addition and Cafeteria Alteration Project. B, resolved that the Norwalk Common Council hereby authorizes at least the preparation of schematic drawings and outline specifications of the Narrowmake Elementary School Kitchen Addition and Cafeteria Alteration Project. And C, resolved that the City of Norwalk Common Council authorizes the City of Norwalk Board of Education to apply the Commissioner of Administrative Services and to accept or reject a grant in the Narrowmake Elementary School Kitchen Addition and Cafeteria Alteration Project. Have a motion?
I'll
Motion.
move. Okay.
Who was the first one there?
Dave.
Greg Burnett moves the
Yeah,
motion.
Greg moves. Okay. Any discussion, Al? Jim?
No, I'm good.
Okay, any comments, questions? Okay, I'll call for a vote. Mr. Burnett,
Aye.
Mr. Hulman,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Yes,
Mr. Keegan,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Aye.
Mr. Sachinelli,
Aye.
and I also vote in favor, so that is unanimous. Thank you. Item 8, review and recommend increase contingency allowance with Insalco Corporation for the FF&E furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Proponent school and refer the following to Common Council for approval. Authorize the purchasing agent to to increase change orders allowance to Insalco Corporation for the purchase of various furniture items from the Ponus School Addition and Alterations Project from $11,648 to $20,000 account noted. Do I have a motion? Mr. Keegan, thank you. Okay, Alan, this is a low one. Go ahead.
Yeah, this should be quick. Last month, the council approved a number of vendors for furniture for Ponus. And as typically with our council actions, we include an allowance for variation because when you buy furniture, there's different components to the furniture package. And since then, the architect and the vendor has worked it through. And there's 3 vendors. 2 of them actually reduces the number because we're buying less from them, but we're putting some of them onto this vendor. So we have allowance of $11,000, but it turned out to be more than that. But I just rounded off to a $20,000 so that it's a simple number to look at. But doesn't mean we want to spend 20 grand. It's the number that's in the backup in terms of we're actually spending. So there's still a little bit of allowance in there in case there's some minor changes after this. Bottom line is overall, we're not changing the total cost of all the packages, but on this one, we are increasing. There's 2 other packages that we're reducing. The reduced one, we don't have to bring it back because it's a not to exceed number. So that should be pretty straightforward. We're looking to get these submitted from the contractor, from vendors to the architect, and have those furniture order for the new wing and deliver before August 15th.
Any questions or comments? All right, hearing none, call for a vote. Mr. Burnett,
Aye.
Mr. Hulman,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
yes,
Mr. Keegan,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Aye.
Mr. Sachinelli,
Aye.
and I'm also aye, so unanimous. Okay, we're cruising now. Okay, building management. So you guys associated with the schools, I don't think you need to stick around unless Alan makes you.
No, they don't have to stay.
Okay, D1, review recommendation for the hiring of security guard services for City Hall and Health Department and refer a recommendation to Common Council for action. Authorize the Mayor Harry W. Rilling to execute an agreement with Orion Security Services, Inc. to provide security services at City Hall daytime and nighttime security guard services. Base contract services for FY 2020-21 shall not exceed $101,836.80. FY 21-22, $103,500.80. FY 22-23, $105,580.80, with 2 one-year options for 2023 and 24 and 2024 and 25. Account number noted. B, Norwalk Health Department daytime security guard services base contract services for FY 2021 shall not exceed $32,730.88. FY 21-22, $33,313.28. FY 22-23, $34,041.28, with 2 One-year options for 23, 24, and 24, 25. Account number noted. Do I have a motion? Kadeem, I'm gonna vote for you. You move that? Okay. Mr.
Motion.
Roberts. Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Alan?
Yeah, this is service of City Hall. It's been going for a number of years, probably around 7 years or so, I would guess. And the health department does not have any security guard on site. So they have requested money on the city's in the budget to have provide security guard service at their location. The City Hall's security guard is actually two shifts. One in the morning to about 4 o'clock, and the night shift comes on from 4 to 12. We went out for RFP, and it's not a bidding process, it's a proposal process, because security guard, we want to evaluate the ability of the firm to provide the service and we want this is performance based more than just straight price. We received 5 proposals, and we interviewed 2 of the lowest 3. There's one that's lower, but at the same time is that we have some experience with them on the library project, and we decided not to interview them. So with the other 2 company, the one that we're recommending is Orion, and we feel that they have a more presence in Fairfield County in terms of accounts. And what they have is a evening security supervisor that kind of goes stop from building to make sure the guards are doing their thing. So, and also the presence there, and then also ability to find replacement security guards and all that. So after the interview, they did very well in the interview. So it was interviewed by the director of health, Sharon Connors, Neil from my office, and myself. So 4 of us did the interview. So we are recommending Orion for the amount that's specified in the action.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments?
One question, Greg Burnett. Just to confirm, so this is not the security service that we're currently using. This would be a new one.
Right. When we excuse me, when we advertised this for RFP in December, for whatever reason they didn't pick it up. I believe they would have been interested, but for whatever reason they didn't see it or whatever. So it's not the current group.
Okay. And secondly, the comment that was made in public participation in terms of having people sign in either at the health department or City Hall, that's not contract related. Right. I mean, that's procedural, that if we requested it, they could do it, right. Which actually I actually think is a good idea, that especially in light of our current COVID situation, that when we do open up City Hall, we should know who comes in and who goes out of the building, because that could assist in contract tracing if necessary. So that's a procedure I would actually support us having.
I don't know. Yeah, it's
just a comment.
Right. It's something the council and the mayor but we're interested to consider that we will have that discussion and set a procedure how we do it, and
Greg, just one thing. We have discussed additional security throughout the building, and I think maybe we'll come back to you and talk about that separately, the committee separately on that, and including.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. Let me interrupt. When we talk about security service, besides the who to hire, that's one thing. But administration of services, it's very interesting, because you're talking about signing in. We don't have one guard. So if the guard go lunch or dinner or go to the bathroom, what do you do then? I mean, the coverage has become another, because a lot of places have 2 guards and they can, there's always coverage. But we don't have a single guard all the time. And they also have to check the building at a certain time of the day kind of thing. And so there's a number of scenarios we have to review, and just how to manage the process. At nighttime too, it's like there's a lot of public comes in for public meeting and stuff. So it's like council meeting. There's 100 people walk by checking IDs and signing names and stuff. It could be, again, all those factors need to be evaluated, how we manage that whole process.
And I think when we looked into it last, we have minors that come into the building and we can't authorize them to sign in, or we can't require them to sign in.
Hmm.
So when we have the concerts that are being performed in the Great Hall, we can't.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. Well, we can take this off.
We can talk about it.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Any other questions on this item? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Mr. Burnett?
Question,
Oh,
what does
sorry.
that do to the current guards that are working? Are they going to be retained under this new, or are we going to end up with new people at the front? Desk?
We asked the security company that question about staff retention, and they both affirmed their interview, look very favorable to it. Because if somebody that works for them, work for us, there's no reason not to hire them if they're willing. So it's really, on the other hand, so the guard company is happy to have somebody, so they don't have to, because you got all the training process, as long as the guard meets all the safety trainings and everything else. So there's a relationship between the guard and the company. It is interesting. Just one last thing I want to mention. I know it's getting late. One interesting thing that price is not always the biggest thing on these contracts, because City Hall is a little unique in the sense that it's a greeter. And also they do check building in terms of heat and stuff like that. So, the lowest price staff person may not be as, you want to be more selective who you want to hire. So, the lowest paying person does not mean that we are going to get the best service that we need to do. So it's a little bit of balance about price and staff selection. Thank you.
Any other questions, discussion? All right, hearing none, take a vote. Mr. Burnett?
Aye.
Mr. Hooverman?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Keegan?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Aye.
Mr. Sachinelli?
Aye.
And I also say yes, so unanimous. Moving on. D2, review proposed amendment to the Building Management Service Agreement with Guardian Services Industries. Refer the following to Common Council for approval. Authorize the Mayor Harry W. Rilling to execute an amendment to Guardian Service Industries Inc.'s contract to provide building management services to extend the agreement from July 1, 2020 to December 31st, 2020 for a total not to exceed $945,590.19. All remaining terms of the agreement remain unchanged. Funds available from account noted. Do you have a motion?
Motion.
Well, thank you, Ms. Smith. Alan, we talked about this in prior meetings, so.
Yeah, I came to land use to explain my strategy in terms of how portion of this contract want to negotiate, and portion of it want to go out to bid. The portion want to go bid is the janitorial services. I was moving along until COVID-19 came in, and as a building facility company, they've been really busy in terms of addressing all the different buildings they're managing. And also they've been, as part of the janitorial services, they've been providing a great deal of flexibility and support in terms of, we are fully, under the COVID-19, actually building management becomes a snowstorm. The building management is not essential staff. But during this crisis, we are part of the essential staff, because we've got to maintain City Hall, Fire Department, Fire Headquarters, Police Headquarters, Health Department, and DPW Garage. So the janitorial staff was providing sanitizing services and things like that. So they are really engaged in everything we're doing and supporting us. So my proposal here is that instead of going through contract negotiation and going rebid on janitorial services at this point, because their contract expires on June 30th, my recommendation is just extend for 6 months to give us the opportunity to sit down with them to work things out, and then also got RFP for janitorial services as everything calms down a little bit.
Any questions, comments?
Quick question. Are they providing the sanitizing services right now?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's two things that they're doing. One is that they do a fogging process. The chemical we're using, the city buy the product directly. The product we're using has a 30-day life in terms of fogging. They spray the stuff in the bathroom common area and stuff. So once you spray on, it's not, unlike alcohol-based products. Once you use it and wipe it off, it's gone. But this type of product you spray on, you don't wipe it on, it stays on 30 days. But what we've been doing is every 2 weeks we apply. Okay, so even though you don't see people doing every day and spraying and things like that, the product we're using is supposed to have a life of 30 days. The other thing we're doing is daily, we're actually doing the wipes. Wiping is good for 24 hours. So unlike unlike you put sanitizer on your hand with alcohol base, once you wipe it, kill the germs, but you can catch it again. And 10 minutes later, when you touch another surface, there's a bacteria on it, a virus on it. But the product we're using on wipe, it's actually lasts 24 hours, right? So they are doing all that for us. And on City Hall, what we do is for greater visibility, we actually having a person come in, and I think every 2 hours, they go through all the high touch points.
Any further questions, discussion? Hearing none, take a vote. Mr. Burnett,
Aye.
Mr. Hildeman,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Keegan,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Aye.
Mr. Stachinelli,
Aye.
and I also vote aye, so that is unanimous. Last item to vote on, item 3, review recommendation to retain commissioning agent for the Maritime Aquarium Functional Replacement Project and refer the following to Common Council for action. A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Innovative Engineering Services LLC to provide building commissioning services for the Norwalk Maritime Aquarium Functional Replacement Project for a total not to exceed $37,150, account noted. B, authorize an additional professional services contingency allowance for a total not to exceed $3,000. Do I have a motion?
I'll move that. Greg Burnett.
Thank you, Greg. Alan?
Yeah, I have another.
Another commissioning agent, right?
Yeah. So this, yeah, they were providing service for when we install equipment. We had to test the equipment meetings, manufacturer requirements, and make sure the control system are set up properly and everything else in between. And the funds for this is coming from part of the functional replacement grant.
The state money.
State money.
Yeah. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. Mr. Burnett,
Aye.
Mr. Hildeman,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Keegan,
Yes.
Mr. Roberts,
Aye.
Mr. Sachinelli.
Aye.
I also vote aye, so it is unanimous. Okay, so let's do like in 5 minutes or less, Alan, item 5A on Fountain Street.
Bond Street, this is an item that no action is required because the committee approved it. I forwarded to the planning commission. There was the discussion about pricing a little bit, but at the end of the meeting, it was approved to move forward to sell these 2 pieces of property. The reason I bring it back to committee is so that you know, because it's been a little while, so I don't want to put it on the Common Council agenda and then all of a sudden you don't remember what it is. So this is just a preview of what I'm bringing to the council. So no action required. And Tom, you had a question to me yesterday, I think is.
Yes.
B1 zone, that means it's 1 family zone.
So somebody couldn't come and build an apartment building on that lot.
Yeah, it's not even a multifamily. It's a single family residence.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Alan?
Just a question about the date. Why do you say May 14th? There's no council meeting on May 14th. The next council meeting is May 12th.
May 12th. There's a typo. Sorry.
Okay.
Jeez.
All right.
Come on, Alan.
Come on, Alan.
You
Wake
thought
up.
the end of agenda, Greg wouldn't pay attention to it.
Alan, wait, last item on the agenda?
I was gonna say, May 14th, my
Slip it
birthday.
by.
It's like I learned this in school. When you write specification for architects, like there's four pages, like 400 pages of document. You slip 1 page in it. So you read this line, you get free pizza. And that's how you test people whether they're gonna read the whole spec or not.
You should do that for us. All right, well, guys.
No, I'm not offering you free pizza.
Tacos, free tacos.
Greg,
Free tacos.
okay, thank you, guys. A really long meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion.
Thank you, Ms. Hillman. All in favor? Aye. Thank
Aye.
you, guys, very much. Thank you, Alan.